Hey Mark, we're going to talk about E is greater than P.
It's a math formula. It's how you structure your thinking about how your local economy works. And it's pretty simple. Your economy has to grow faster than your population for everybody in the economy to have more money per person to serve than they had the year before.
Or what happens?
Well, if your economy grows slower than your population, everybody has more people to serve with less money every year, which is what it's like in a recession or a depression. It's awful. It's catastrophic, actually. So economic development has always been about growing the E side, the economy side. And workforce development and healthcare and education have all been on the population side, or the P side. And the two worlds don't really integrate very often, and we have, I think, a couple of decades ahead where if we can't figure out ways to integrate both the economic development agenda in communities with the workforce development agenda in the community, we're going to have a lot of trouble meeting goals on either end.
Well, let me just check this assumption out. I've been in the P side of the thing for about 30 years, and the number of economic development professionals like yourself that I've worked closely with over that time to resolve poverty has been, oh yeah, zero. So, your theory is right. From my perspective, we've never really seen how to work with the economic development world, and the economic development world hasn't really needed to have us be that involved with them because there's been so many baby boomers in the workforce making big bucks, moving our economy forward.
I think that's most of it. Most of it is that in the past, there were more workers than there were jobs, almost every year. And the economic developers didn't have to worry about finding workers. They had to worry about getting infrastructure and buildings and the business climate tweaked so the employers would choose their communities over someone else's. Now we're heading into a 25-year era where most communities aren't going to have enough qualified workers to staff the economies that they have. And if they can't figure out how to mine especially the unqualified or currently hard to employ populations in their communities, they're not going to be able to grow their economies. They're going to go into a death spiral.
That sounds bad.
Yeah.
So really what you're saying is that the economic-based jobs, as you described it to me, are the jobs that bring money from outside the community. Right?
Correct.
These are the sort of the power generators that allow the service sector to flourish and then take care of people who are dependent. Right? So
Correct.
If we are losing traction in that economic base job sector, then that has an impact on a lot of service jobs and a lot of people that need to be taken care of.
Correct. And economic developers and the economic development business has focused almost exclusively on this economic base or this export sector. That's how you grew the economy. Otherwise, you theoretically could solve all your unemployment problems by opening up 10,000 laundromats. So you have to grow the jobs in your community that are producing goods and services that are sold outside the economy to make the pie bigger. If the pie isn't growing, if this economic sector, economic base sector isn't growing, then the service sector can't grow. And if any strategies or programs designed to eliminate poverty or improve the plight of local residents that doesn't include growing the economy faster than the population is going to fail. And what's different about now versus in the past is the economic developers used to be able to do what they do by themselves.
Without us.
Right. And now they can't. Now they need programs that scale and that work on the workforce development side or on the population side of the equation. The economic development side of the equation, our economic developers have a lot of allies in the community college and training ranks because they're pretty close to the employers and the workforce. So
Yep.
The employers often come to the community college and say, develop a curriculum to train people so they can do this job. And they're very good at that. Mm-hmm. But that's about the extent of it. What you're going to see from here on out, if there's a paradigm shift or a sea change that we're going to see, it's going to be, you're going to see increasing interest on the part of employers to solve these chronic poverty and hard to employ issues.
So here's where the partnership
side
begins. This is where the partnership between E and P begins. I mean, so what you're suggesting is, as we develop this full spectrum of services, education, human services, and economic development, and the business scenario planning that gets done in our communities, all of it is done in a much higher level of coordination, because we can't afford a high, unqualified, potentially workable folks not working.
Well, I think what we've been talking about the last 6 months is the ability to get synergy from joining the two sides. So if you take those of you from the workforce development and population and healthcare and education and social services side, and you take those from the employer business community side, and get them to see the same problems in the future and see themselves as integrated as we go forward to solve it, a lot of good things can happen. To begin with, a lot of the people that are in this hard to employ cohort in most communities are demoralized, and they're going to need to be inspired that there's jobs waiting for them on the other side. All they're getting from the news and from the media is that there are no jobs and things are getting worse.
Right.
And so, unless these people are not they're paying attention, and if there's not, or probably better said, if there were an integrated, strategic initiative, long-term one by a community to invest in the development of certain particular economic base sectors to grow their economy, and that there was investment, discretionary resources from the community were going into preparing the community to compete for and hold those jobs, then you would have a lot easier case convincing a hard-to-employ circles candidate that that there were people over here working on getting you a job. While you work on getting yourself ready, there's the rest of the communities over here trying to get a job lined up for you.
Now I've sat down with the economic development commissions across the country. I have talked with them, and they're concerned that even when the unemployment looks high, it's difficult to get and retain good workers, particularly in entry-level jobs. And if you ask employers what really happens, they're saying things like they don't show up, and if you ask why, it's usually a broken car, childcare fell through, some relationship had a meltdown, whatever. But all of that can be mitigated if we think in advance about how to make sure that once people get the job, they keep it and advance in that job. And our workforce development systems are doing their part to put people into the jobs. But what we need to do is wrap circles around the post-placement part of this so that people can continue, because you want that worker to become one of these economic base generators over time, right?
Yeah, and I think what's exciting about this moment in time is that you've spent the last 12 years figuring this out,
or 30, yeah,
and you've got this to a point where it looks like it could scale.
Yes.
So if you want to call that a technology, you have this technology that works. What has been missing to make it scale has been the resources. Mm-hmm. And the resources have not been there and would not likely be there in the future if this problem remained a humanitarian problem alone. So let's go help the less fortunate of our human beings, fellow human beings, has been kind of
the appeal.
That's been the pool from which you had to resource funds.
Right.
What we're talking about now is that the communities are very quickly going to realize that if they don't figure out how to scale your technology to start getting the people out of their community who right now can't pass a drug test, aren't prepared to work, come to work. If you can't convert your existing residents that are in that unqualified pool or hard to employ pool, your economy is going to fail. And so instead of it just being a humanitarian issue, now it's a economic patriotic,
Right.
save the community agenda, and you're going to have a lot easier time raising the resources, not only the financial resources, but getting the circle's team members to volunteer to come in and help getting the community behind the program.